Hello and welcome back to another episode of Wrestling Wednesdays. Now, my guest this week, quite a colourful character if you look at his social media, always one to rile his opponents up, but with good meaning behind it, I'm sure. It is the wonderful, the incredibly talented Kelly Sixx. Kelly, how you doing?
Hey man, I'm doing good. Thank you very much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. It's as uh, as I mentioned to you, I've seen you wrestle in person, and that was all pre-pandemic. So I've not had the pleasure of seeing the newer versions of you over the last year or so. But I've never had the chance to actually speak to you. So it's a genuine pleasure to get the chance to have a chat with you tonight.
Oh, awesome, man. Thank you very much.
So before I get into some of your historical matches and opponents in the past, I wanted to ask about your use of social media and how it seems to really resonate with you and it really helps build on your character. Why is it important for you to use it, and why do you think it works so well for you, and you get such a good reaction overall whenever you do anything? You're very creative with the stories you tell on there.
Oh, thank you. That's a very good opening question, actually. I'm excited about this interview. Sometimes you do interviews and it's like, so where did you first start watching wrestling? It's like I've answered that 80 times already. So this is a good, solid first
Wait, you're a
question.
wrestler?
Who knows? Yeah. So social media is like a weird one because it was so prominent in 2017 sort of time, 2018, when like the peak of BritWres was maybe like 2016 to 2018 at that time. And it was essentially, if you weren't over online, you wouldn't get much. You'd still get a look in some places, but you would struggle to do really well or get into some of the bigger shows if you weren't making a buzz online. I'm happy that's not really the case anymore, because like it it's really odd where I'd put up a video that were, to be fair, some of my like diss track stuff would pop off really heavy. But at the moment, so like say I put up a video of something like a promo or a music video of a match, put it on Facebook, Instagram, pops off. You put it on Twitter and it gets nothing. And Twitter was such a heavy thing, so I'm happy that's not the case anymore. But yeah, I use mine. I think I have the advantage of the fact that like I am me on social media. That can be a detriment sometimes, because where everyone shares their good days and you get this unrealistic view of people. My social media is just me. If I'm having a great day, I'm gonna tell you, and if I'm having a terrible day, I'm gonna tell you then as well. Like, so you get a real unfiltered look into me. So I think that helps, so that when I put together a promo and something like that, people can sense that there's some reality in it, and they can sense, like, they can really connect with it. At least that's the feedback I tend to get from people anyway, which is really nice. I seem to get, especially over the last year, a lot more people sliding into the DMs and saying like, I love this that you did. I still put up my workout videos, which I would have stopped ages ago if people weren't in there going, look, you're inspiring me to do this. I'm like, if I can inspire someone to work out when I've never been a great body shape guy, then that's cool, man. So yeah, hopefully there was an answer in there for you somewhere. You'll find this throughout the interview that I just don't stop talking.
Just reminds me of your character when I've seen you live, so it kind of
Yeah.
makes sense. Stop talking during matches normally. I mean, it's interesting you mentioned about the inspiration for working out and almost knocking yourself, not calling yourself a body guy. That's one of the big transitions I think I've seen in you over the pre and post pandemic time when I've seen you is your ring shape, like the movement you've got. You were always a good worker, but it seems to be that you've taken it up to another level with your cardio and your ability in the ring. And you seem a lot more physical now with your opponents. I don't know if it's just getting nastier or what, I don't know what it is, but is that something you've worked on yourself, or is that just more of a, I'm overanalyzing it and it's purely just you're getting more confident every time you wrestle?
I mean, the confidence is definitely a thing. Finding my feet a bit more and going full blown into everything, because I'm fully confident in what I'm doing. Whereas sometimes before I'd be either in like a gear I didn't like, or filling a role on the show that I didn't like, or just something that made me uncomfortable. Whereas now I just show up and I'm like, I've been here long enough now. Like, I'm not, that I can go into most locker rooms and be like, this is what I'd like to do. And go onto most shows and go like, today I'm gonna just go out there and put on the best show I can. It's not like, obviously there's got to be some balance. You've got to give some stuff to the rest of the card and got to make a great show overall. So you can't be selfish. But I was the complete opposite of selfish. And in fact, actually, Andy Quilden, Rev Pro promoter, has said this to me during training sessions, that I essentially seemed like I'd be a great person to wrestle, like engaging and stuff like that, and very easy to work with and stuff. But it's like, but not engaging from, sometimes like I lose that engagement from like a fan's perspective, and so it's finding that balance. But now I'm in a position where I'm just like, this is what I've been working on, this is what I'm going to do, going to roll and do that. Learning to hit harder and stuff like that just came from being a heavyweight. I got really big over lockdown, the biggest I've ever been in my life by a long way. And there's not even, I think there's, I've got one video of me at my absolute heaviest that I'm saving for, because I've done like a transformation video, but like a funny one. But I'm waiting till I get down to a point where the last shot is really shockingly good. So like that'll, I don't know how long that'll take me, but one day you'll get to see really fat me. But yeah, from being real heavyweight stuff, it just taught me how to like lean in with stuff and put more weight behind your shots, because you can't run around as much because you just don't have the cardio for it. So I learned how to pace myself, how to make little things mean so much more. And yeah, so that was a great, as much as I didn't like being large, it was a fantastic learning experience to learn how to make so much out of so little and how to pace myself properly. So I learned a lot.
Okay, I mean it comes across really well, obviously, like I say, in your social media videos and when I see you live, and I've got to see the pleasure of seeing you live this year, hopefully at some point. But it comes across that you've got a mind that's thinking away constantly when you're working. So it's just been interesting hearing you talk about the fact that that is something that's impacted you over the last year. Because every time I watch any of your matches online now, it's you just, the way you throw people around and the way you slam them and the way you throw in punches, like you say, you are hitting much harder. And I just wondered, that was a character thing, and obviously not. It's a confidence and experience thing. If I can take you back then, so from my knowledge, I think the first time I sort of heard of you was with What Culture, when I've seen you do a couple of matches and sort of tag matches. But was it around sort of 2017 when you started wrestling?
So I originally started wrestling forever ago. I can't even remember when it was. I only started taking it seriously around 2015 to 16 sort of time. And 16 going into 17 was my year where I started getting a few more places, which is probably, it must be 2017 where I did What Culture the first time, maybe. I think I lose track, but yeah, so it's been a while, but then like it peaked up quite quickly. And now I feel like I'm back in that peak again now. Well, not peaking, but like that climb where suddenly out of nowhere, well, I say out of nowhere, after putting in all like the same level of dedication that I was putting in back then and getting all those random opportunities that came along, now they seem to all be cramming out the woodwork again. And it's in that exciting time where I'm like, every day there's a new person in my inbox asking me to do something good. So yeah, went off on a track there again. Told you I will wrap it forever.
It's good. I like it. I suppose the one last question to ask you about in terms of the pandemic, it seemed to be quite a challenging time where everyone's life's obviously on pause, and like your wrestling careers are on pause. But out of that, there seems to be a whole host of new promotions all throughout the UK that have popped up, such as the likes of Wrestle Carnival and things like that. Has that been quite exciting for you to come out of that and suddenly have, like you mentioned, all these new opportunities and be able to build storylines in those companies?
Yeah, I think it's been nice that it was like a refresh, because we lost so many people to NXT UK, and then a bunch of people went abroad. And it gave us a clean slate almost, where, especially at the start of the end of the pandemic, as the show started coming back, like a fair few top level people were saying like there are no stars in the country anymore. We don't have any draws, as would be like people where you go like, that person's on this card, I have to go see it. And so it left a clean slate for everyone to work on. And that's obviously not a place I'm at yet, but it's also a place that with all the work I've put in, I feel like I can be at. And we've started getting those people now, like your Michael Oku's. Obviously, I don't know if Will Ospreay even counts as like a British wrestler anymore. He's obviously a British wrestler, but like he's obviously eclipsed everyone. But people like Oku's probably the best example of that, of someone that he has boosted not just himself, but he's taken over everyone. And I felt this back when he did PWG a month or so ago, or a few months ago. hit the way that people were talking about him online, that very much felt like the same start that I referenced before, where like 2016, 17, the British scene started to explode off of some guys doing PWG and the buzz they generated. I feel like Michael's now done that for the scene, obviously for himself as well, but like the scene now is just going into overdrive. And with all these new promotions, like you mentioned, there's so many opportunities still for everyone. The standard is getting so good so fast, almost scarily fast. So I have to spend my entire life training, gym, focus on everything. So I can't get left behind at all. But these people are getting so good. You've got like your Leon Slaters and stuff that have just come out of nowhere and again eclipsed everyone. So yeah, it's an exciting time to be a British wrestler and a British wrestling fan, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like as well there's more eyes worldwide on it when obviously when that sort of improves as well. I mean, it even gets mentioned in Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine every month, and it's great to see so many British wrestlers in their top 50 or top 100s whenever they do those things. Obviously, I want to speak to you a little bit about some of your work now, but before we get there, you've wrestled some of my favorite wrestlers as well, guys like Robbie X. I read it. I was reading. I've not seen the match, but I was reading about a multi-person match that you had with Sadie Gibson, Robbie X, etc. What was that like working with those guys?
So I can't remember anything about that match except for Sadie being in it, which is weird. There's like a period of time where I just have no memories of certain things, but I can remember her being there and like doing a handspring thing. So I wrestled Robbie on a singles match, probably that same year, I think, or maybe like a year before. I think it was Fight Factory.
Yeah.
I think it was them. Yeah, and that was banging. Robbie is one of my favorite wrestlers, just anywhere. The fact that he's not abroad already is just mind-blowing. I can't think of a better junior heavyweight anywhere. He's like pack levels of freaky, I think, where just the way he moves is so precise. He's got it down to such a T, it's ridiculous. So yeah, getting to wrestle him then was great. I'd love to wrestle him now. I don't think I could keep up now. So like that's again another aim where I can look at that and go, that spurs me on, because if I get that opportunity again, and I feel like I will get that opportunity again, I want to make sure that I'm not outclassed. So it gives me things to work for. So yeah, enjoyed that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see that happen again. He's a hometown hero. I'm from Lincoln, so yeah, it's a massive inspiration. And Fight Factory Wrestling are an incredible organisation up this way as well. So they're celebrating 10 years this year. So maybe that's something that we could, you never know, you might be able to clash up this way again. That'd be great.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to bully them into having me down again or up.
Yeah, I think you will have to. Yeah, we need to make sure. There's got to be something in the number of X's in terms of 6 and Robbie X. There's got to be something we can do there without it sounding like an adult channel. Joseph Connors is another one there that I wanted to ask you about. Incredible talent. One of the main guys in the UK. Obviously spent time in NXT UK. Do you remember much about working with him?
I remember wrestling Joe at Southside. I think it's the only time we've ever been in the ring together, I think. But he was just fantastic. It's one of those people where it goes back to that comment from Quilden before, where he's the perfect type of wrestler for wrestlers to want to face, because he's so creative and so just naturally good at everything he does. You could tell he puts a lot of thought of it into everything, and I love working with stuff like that. Again, that was at a time where I wasn't really, I think I was on a decline at that point. So it's a shame that my match with him was at a time where I definitely was not in his league at all. I'd love to revisit that now. And hopefully this year, now that he's back on the scene, we'll get a chance to do it. So yeah, really, really enjoyed him.
Okay, so there's a couple of matches that we've got to set up this year, then that's fine. We'll get a long list by the end of it. We'll get you like a wish list, and we'll have to start reaching out to people. Obviously, I was going through your YouTube collection, which is incredible to work through, and anyone who's watching this, I fully recommend not only your channel that you can subscribe to for matches, but there are other matches that other promotions have put on there from all your career over the last few years. I noticed a couple of intergender matches that I think were really intriguing with the way you told the story. You took a massive superplex bump, which I wouldn't have fancied taking myself, obviously. But one of the matches on your collection is with Maverick Mayhew from about a year ago. Yeah. That was a fantastic match to watch. You know, really quick, really physical. quite intense. The entrance music's really class, and I want to ask you about that in a second as well. But can you talk a little bit about your feud with him and what it was like, what it's like battling with another great prospect?
Yeah, so me and Mav go back many, many years. Back when I was doing the tagging with Ashley a lot more, he was tagging with Mills, so we'd end up on the same shows as each other. I think we tagged together once at ACW in London. That was a fun place before it disappeared. But yeah, so working with Mav's really good fun. He's just such a wind up as a human being. Just that, like, if Rick rolling someone was a person, that would be Maverick Mayhew. Okay. And I mean that in every sense of the word. But yeah, so he's fantastic to work with. Always just enjoyed watching him do mental stuff. That was one of my favorite matches in a long time. Just again, really fun in front of an RCWA crowd, which is one of my favorite places to be. And it pushed me to be able to keep up with someone a lot faster than me back then when I was really still very big. So yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Ring entrance music for that, is that something you've got, because you obviously mentioned who the band is and all the rest of it on your YouTube channel? Is that your own, is that music you've got for you for every time? Because I noticed obviously for other events you have different music coming in.
So I have a real bad habit of changing my music a lot because I have to be I have to get my adrenaline going to go out, kind of thing, get in the mood for things. So I've started actually listening to music before I go out to try to remove that, because I know some other people do that. But I change my music depending on where I feel like I am personality wise, what type of wrestler I am at the time. And because that changes, like, and we'll get into that later, like, because I have a constant changing, evolving version of me, it's very hard to stay on one bit of music, because I firmly believe that the entrance is probably one of the most important parts of a match, because you set the stage for everything then. And if you've got a bad entrance, like if I go to a show that's got like a terrible sound system, you already know that the crowd, the energy gets zapped. The guys that are wrestling, they just, like, you completely lose again all that adrenaline, and all your confidence with it. It's such an important part of wrestling. And I was doing crazy big entrances before pretty much anyone in the country that I can think of, to be honest. Like, there was probably people that did it back. But again, before it became a more popular thing to do, I was there with my own smoke machine, my smoke tunnel, my what you call them, the confetti cannons and stuff. I was popping off all this stuff because I love the spectacle of entrances, and so because of that, my music changed all the time. But yeah, we'll chat more about that later, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by that. Yeah, I'd like to hear more about it. Obviously, I was watching, I'd say, on your stories recently with Instagram, very creative ways of challenging people or reacting to a loss or a win, and it's great because it makes it feel, as much as we know that there's planned endings and planned storylines, it just makes it feel a little bit more to the show when you come away and you can see the reaction of the wrestler and they're heated about the loss, or they're building up to the next story. The one that I saw the other day was the leaving and someone will be calling you daddy, and that was very, very level of risky, which I like. How do you come up with what you're going to do? Is it just going on an emotional feeling, or do you work with a promoter on that, or is it purely down to yourself?
A lot of promoters, and this isn't a dig on them, but like, a lot of promoters obviously look for a safe way to run shows, because there's not a big profit margin in professional wrestling. It's a very small profit margin, in fact, to be honest. So they don't invest in stories a lot, especially when, based on the like 2 or 3 years before lockdown, we lost so many wrestlers that were in the middle of stories and things. So it's very hard for them to want to engage in that. I have always tried to make things happen, and certain places have let me run with it. RCWA, for example, is one where they kind of reluctantly let me do my thing, but I just keep on. I'm like, here's all my ideas, here's where we start, here's all the changes, here's where it ends. I love coming up with something that means something, and even if it's a story that's just me, and it doesn't have to be me interacting with one person, it's just me and my journey of evolution, then I want to tell that story, like the call me daddy thing. So we've got the payoff match for that in a couple weeks now, because we were going to do the payoff match in Southampton, which was the show just gone, or the show before. And this is a little inside thing for you. So like, we were supposed to do it then, but when we did the the setup for it, we sold so many tickets for a different date because one of the people told the crowd it was a different date.
Oh,
And so we're like, now we've told like some people it's this, some people it's this, so let's stretch it across that. And so yeah, then we did a non-finish on the last one, which is cool. And then that leads into doing the one in Hailing Island in a couple of weeks, which will be the big payoff. And also the guy I'm doing it with, his mum couldn't be there originally for the Southampton one, so we weren't going to do it without her being there. So yeah, like I go in and I do those things. That was just a dumb idea because I won't tell the full story of it because it's quite funny, but like that's another story for another day when I don't want to be shunned. But essentially it came off as a joke, and then the promoters were like, yeah, we like that, but let's make it longer. Like I was like, I can't really say a lot about it now because we're mid-flow, so I have to say about it like maybe a year or so down the line. But I mean, there's big things planned with it, and it's wonderful to be able to jump in and do something so long term. So yeah, I'm really excited for it.
that's brilliant, though, isn't it? You can tell it brings a lot of energy to you. You can see it in your face how excited you are about doing a long-term story. I mean, I think that's one of the things that as a fan who looks into it, I kind of really crave the storytelling. You mentioned obviously the entrances, finishes, and stories are what I really love about wrestling. And obviously for a lot of individual promoters, it's very difficult because you might have changes or you might not have people and the rest of it. But to know that there are some connections and some long-term stories, it helps sell tickets and gets people in the room. And if they can't, it gets people interested in the on-demand service or whatever they might have. Yeah. So I like that. It's very exciting to know that you've got something that's building and will continue to build. In terms of the matches you've got coming up, before we get into a bit more of a talk about some character change that you might want to discuss, it's obviously the people you've got coming up. Who are you most excited to be fighting with, and what promotions can people come and see you in the next, say February, March? Where can people see you live?
You should come to Manchester and Sovereign Pro Wrestling on the 5th. So that's just going to be a crazy good one. We're doing the collective thing. And that's another one that's like a story that we're just building to be something much bigger than just a throwaway. So that's going to be really good. That's a very important date, which we're going to chat about in a minute. The weekend after that, I'm doing the payoff match with Billy Wiz for that Call Me Daddy match. I was supposed to have lots of shows the 2 days after, but there was like an admin error with that. So now I'm going to reach out for those in a couple of days and just see what else I can do. Other than that, I just have so many random things in my diary. So I've got the Isle of Wight with Kapow on the 18th, RCWA in Essex on the 25th. I'm also doing apparently a wrestling stag do in the morning of that day. So yeah, just random things like that. March, Kapow in Salisbury. No Mercy in Wales on the 19th. I've also got offered to do, I can't say where or anything yet, but I got offered to do 2 seminars and a show abroad in May, I think it is now. Okay. So as soon as that gets announced, I can show that. So yeah, a bunch of stuff coming up, and I feel like I'm going to get a bit of a boost off of some of the videos that are coming out over the next couple of weeks as well, which always happens when I put something out that's heartfelt and thought about a lot. It always leads to me getting offers from everywhere, which is great.
So as you alluded to earlier about the importance of entrances and the motivation behind your character and the fact that you pick your songs based on how your character's feeling or what it might be working on, kind of get the feeling from what you've mentioned to me that there's a big change coming in the next few days. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so this is the big one for me. As I said, I change consistently because I'm a very slow learner. Just in life, it takes me ages to get my head wrapped around anything. I was the last one out of my group to be any good at wrestling. It took me years, and still now, like you think about the opportunities that I had many years ago. I was nowhere near the level I am now, but like another person could have been with the opportunities and learning opportunities that I had back then. But I really struggle to process things sometimes. It takes me like a while of sitting down. So like it's taken me all this time to learn, and I've got to go away and, like I say, work as like a heavyweight. So I learn about pacing, striking, throws. I've worked as a as a cruiserweight, learning about like flips and speed. Well, I'd say flips as if I did any. I did like a few. I used to do a lot more when I was younger, but just like changing pace, intensity. You have to hit a lot harder when you're a lot smaller as well, because it's a visual thing as well. Mechanically learning to out wrestle people as well. Looking at, again, the types of people that are doing very big outwards performance based characters and personas on the scene at the moment, and going, okay, cool, how do I get back to the point where I'm the most like impressive performer on the scene again? Because I was at one point like performance based. I was the most like impressive person in terms of like your entrance and the image and everything. It's just at the time my wrestling was pretty poo, so it didn't work. So I've kind of taken all of that, and although that's led through loads of changes and it's meant that I don't have an identity that people can really latch onto, like when you think Kelly Sixx, depending on who you're talking to, it could be a complete different person to who the next person's thinking of, depending on where you saw me and what I was doing. Now I've found the point where I've learned everything I need to learn. I've molded everything that I love about wrestling into one thing. I've sat and I've written for just, I'd say hours, but it's days, weeks, months at this point, just constantly just trying to perfect exactly who I want to be and how I want to portray myself as a wrestler. And what sets me apart, I think, is a big thing as well. I've asked myself a fair few times, like, what makes me someone that, if you have a choice between two people, why do you pick me? Like, because I'll never be the most athletic person that you'll ever meet. I'll never be the strongest or the fastest or anything like that. So I need a selling point. Like, what is that? Like, why do you want to buy tickets to see me or book me on your show, etc., etc.? So I think I've found that now, and it involves going back to some, like, taking some of this new stuff I've learned, putting it back in an old case, and then just leveling it up. Is probably the best way I could say. It's all dependent. So it all gets debuted on this Sunday, the 5th of February, for Soft Pro. That's all dependent on my new gear arriving, which is supposed to arrive this week. It's coming from America. It's in transit. It's got to Heathrow so far. That's all I know. So I'm praying it arrives, because if it doesn't, I don't know what I'm going to do. But yeah, at that point, I've picked music that I've cut down to a point where I take out bits that don't match. I've redone my video for my entrance, because I make my own videos. The gears there, like all the moves and transitions, the movement in the way I walk and things, just finding that bit where I can go out. You mentioned earlier about like me and Ashley tagging at Defiant. Again, loved it. And What Culture, sorry, as well. Like, I love those opportunities, and it was really good fun, but I was never 100% confident in what I was doing, because I was kind of doing someone else's vision of what they wanted us to be. And I think Ashley felt the same way, and that's the same thing as when I've done some other things where I've gone out, and the moment I step through the curtain, I'm like, I don't believe in me, so why should anyone else? Now I've gone full blown, I don't care what anyone says, what anyone thinks. I fully embraced being this guy that dresses like he's 10 years younger than he actually is, scene kid emo boy, but like with all these actual wrestling skills to go with it. So yeah, that's kind of a long explanation, because I'm trying to jump around saying it without saying exactly what's happening, because then no one will watch my video when it comes out if I say it all now.
No, that's good promotion for it. I'm looking forward to it. I'm very excited to see what you're creating. I suppose there was a question I was going to ask you that in a week's time will be a totally different answer. I was going to ask you to describe yourself, describe Kelly Sixx, for if you're a promoter watching, what are they getting if they hire you? And I suppose in a week's time it might change, but
I guess I can say now then, like, it's that performer again that was there. So like the concept of making sure that people talk about me when I leave, people should remember stuff. Like, it might not always be the guy collecting all the belts. I know people like to do that belt collector gimmick where they start to collect their, like, they go around, they have a bit of success, and everyone's got a picture with 800 belts. Like, I've done that on occasions, and that's been fun. But very much my thing now is just going out and making sure that people remember something, at least one thing I did. They walk away with my name on their lips rather than someone else's. And that's going to come in the form of just such a revamped way I wrestle. A lot of it's based around trickery and deception. Like, so you've watched wrestling, like you say, for ages. I bet there's things that you recognize that a lot of people do exactly the same, because we're all like wrestling, when it started becoming taught in schools rather than taught on the road kind of thing, there was almost like an unofficial syllabus where, and I still think there should be like more of a syllabus, which I think they're actually doing at the is it London Move School? Whoever, Tom Dawkins is one. He's got a flip school in London where they have like a syllabus, and I love that concept. But yeah, so we all get taught the same stuff to a point until we start branching out. So if I go this way, this person's going this way. If I use this maneuver, someone else is going to come in, and their immediate reaction, they're going to react this way. And that's what I'm working off of. It's like, you've seen a lot of those things. I've taken them and gone, cool. I know exactly what they're going to want to do. How do I then be like 2 steps ahead? Essentially like a game of chess, but trying to do like 4D chess instead, because I want to be 1,000 steps ahead of them. Sorry, it's gimmick infringement of someone else there, but like, yeah, what's the interdimensional chess, shall we say? Yeah, so that's that concept of like taking everything that you've kind of just accepted as like, this is this way because it's wrestling, and going, nah, we're rewriting that and making you stop and think and go, oh, I've never seen that before. So yeah, it's essentially that, making people think, making people remember stuff, and making them walk away going, I really saw a show tonight, not just like good wrestling. I saw a full-on performance, and that's what I bring to the table.
I like that. That's a brilliant answer. Obviously, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of your matches are on your YouTube channel, which people can subscribe to. And obviously, you've mentioned yourself that you'll be dropping some content across social media and YouTube. Where can people go to follow you? So I'll put the links underneath, but where do you advise people go to find out more about you and follow you?
The best stuff for me day to day is if you check out Instagram. I'm at Kelly Sixx UK on everything except for YouTube, where I'm just Kelly Sixx, I think. We'll have to find out. But yeah, so honestly, Instagram's the most up-to-date thing. It just seems to give a lot more engagement with people. I post a lot of stories. There's not a day that will go by where I don't have stories about just what I'm doing, what's going on, what shows are on. It's the first place that any of my promos get dropped. First place where I think it's the only place really I put match clips half the time. It's half the reason that I've started going back to filming things in portrait, so it can go on Instagram. So yeah, follow me on there. I'm going to start putting more matches on YouTube. I've held off. Most of my matches aren't there because I only put special ones or ones that are pretty solid overall. But there's nothing I've been massively confident with for a while, where I've been going through this change and going like, I'm not where I want to be. I don't come across how I want to come across. I've then not wanted that to go online, because once it's online, if people search my name and they find that and they don't like what they see, I'm like, cool, I don't like it either. But wait, so now coming from this weekend onwards, I'm going to be able to put up pretty much every match I have. So yeah, that'll be getting a lot busier on the Kelly Sixx YouTube.
With the new creation of characters, you've got great t-shirts and great merchandise. What can people do? Obviously, if they're not at an event and buy your t-shirts there, how can people get hold of supporting you and grab a t-shirt?
So at the moment, I'm running through the last few of my shirts. I've got like a couple of kids sizes for my original purple shirt done forever ago, and I've got my tropical shirt as well, which again, a lot of them I'm doing like real cheap price at shows now, just trying to like clear it out so that I can make space for something else. All of my wardrobes and cupboards and stuff are full of just wrestling stuff, so I'm trying to get rid of that. Eventually, when I bring out new stuff, I'll make sure that goes online. So I'm sure a lot of people know that I was involved with On The Gear for a while. Unfortunately, not really involved in that anymore, so I don't have any control over whether they post it out. I don't, like, you might still get your stuff, but I have as of yet to know whether my stuff will still get posted out now I'm not a part of it, or whether I'll get my money from it. So for the moment, don't buy anything from me online. I'm going to set up my big cartel like the old days, get everything on there, like your wristbands, loads of pictures, t-shirts when they come out with new ones. Just, I'm going to fill it up again just like I used to, because I used to have a really busy big cartel back in the day. So I'm going to do that again. That will likely be Kelly Sixx UK .bigcartel.com as and when it launches. I'll try to get it up next week, so it should be up by the Call Me Daddy match, maybe. So whether it's a week from today, yeah, like Or maybe I'll get it up by my birthday. There we go. Yeah, my birthday's on the 6th of February. I'll get it up by then. There we go. That's the goal.
Okay, well, an early happy birthday for you for that day as well then. But yeah, the
Thank
Call Me Daddy match, honestly, this is brilliant. I cannot wait to hear all about this. I'm gutted I'm not going to be there, but I cannot wait to hear all about it afterwards. So before you go, I've got to ask you about British wrestling. You mentioned the fact that you might have the opportunity to go abroad for some seminars. There seems a real interest in taking our talent, I'm saying our because it's the UK, to America or throughout Europe to do seminars. Do you think that's because British wrestling is perceived as such a high energy and high talented learning curve? You mentioned obviously the fact that there's like a syllabus that people could potentially learn from. And do you think that's something that's changed because of social media and YouTube, that people can see all these matches online and know what our talent looks like, watch the matches and be like, wow, they're doing amazing things over there, we want it in our country too?
Yeah, I think there's we've obviously got some of the biggest, well, probably the biggest shows in Europe, to be fair. I think WXW is the only one that comes close. But if you think about your progress and your Rev Pros and stuff, that's just on a different level to everything else. So like there's big names that come in and do that, and big shows, and it's just such high quality wrestling. I think because we get to wrestle so frequently, like I can't remember the last time I had a weekend off. Actually, this past weekend I think was the first weekend I had off in forever. Genuinely in like 6 months plus, at least, like minimum, possibly 12 months. And that was really weird. We just have so many shows that we're constantly getting better and constantly crafting things. I don't think social media is necessarily British wrestlers' strong point. I think like American wrestlers are a lot better with their social media, so like that's something for us all to work on. But in terms of the actual shows, you know, the vast majority of shows you go to in this country are going to be full of bangers, full of people that are you're going to get to see for such little money for how talented they are. And it's just, yeah, I think it's a real treat that we have so much good wrestling right here, and so therefore everyone wants to come over here because there's so many shows and they want to work with these people because they know these people are so experienced and they're having absolute killer matches, so they're people to learn from. So yeah, so it's a fantastic scene to be a part of, and I don't think I'd honestly choose to be a part of any other scene. I love going away. Like, I love going to Japan. I want to go to America and do things like that. I love going to Europe and wrestling everyone there just because everyone's lovely, and the shows are really good fun. But in terms of having my home base, I love it being in the UK, and I'm very lucky to have that.
Cool. And here's a little question for you, like almost like a job interview style thing. Your goals, where do you kind of want to see yourself when you say another 10 years, you're looking back and a lot of your accomplishments, where would you like to have gone in the next few years? Is there anything you really want to tick off a bucket list, or anyone particularly you'd love to work with? We mentioned obviously a few earlier, but is there anyone in your mind that you think, yeah, I really want to do that one day? I just want to be in that city or that venue or something like that.
I want to go back to Japan again. That'd be good fun. Just again, everyone's lovely over there, and it's just a different environment. Really culture makes it sound like everywhere else isn't. But they have a different culture where there's certain stuff that's appreciated, that's not appreciated other places, and it lets me do a lot more of my more intricate things, and it really works well. I want to do that, but in reality, I just want to wrestle everywhere. My old goal was to become a full-time wrestler, and I did that years and years and years ago. So then when I hit that goal, I kind of like, I had other little things, but that was the main one, and so I got sloppy and lazy off of the fact I'd already hit that. So now that's not a goal. Like if that happens again on the way, that'd be great. Lockdown kind of ruined the concept of going full time for shows, but that's now coming back. But that's just a side, like a byproduct of it. I don't want that to be in there anymore. My goals are purely just be on every show in the country. Rev Pro is the one that I really, really care about. Currently in talks with them and we've got some stuff that will hopefully be kicking off this year, preferably in the next few months, you never know. But yeah, there's things that I'm working on with them, and that's my main goal. Rev Pro, York Hall, main event York Hall. Like everything else is a bonus, but that's it. Rev Pro, York Hall, main event York Hall.
And is there any particular style of match? Because I know I've had the pleasure of speaking to a few people that have the mindset of wanting to do things like death matches or certain types of things. Is there something in your mind you'd love to say that it's a type of match I've never done before? I'd like to try and give it a go.
I'm not really one for death matches, and I know like, I like watching them, but I just don't like getting cut. I don't like needles and things like that. Love hardcore stuff. Like your chairs, tables are the greatest thing ever invented, just because of the chaos when you hit a table when everything explodes. I love them all day. So I'd like to do more things like that. I'd like to do some British rounds wrestling, just because I think I could look at it from a different aspect. Whereas sometimes you see British rounds matches and it's just someone's just put together a regular match and split it into sections. Whereas I want to look at it and go, cool, what can I do that's different to a regular match here? Yeah, honestly, just everything. Stories are the main thing. So with stories come stipulation matches, and I just want to do everything all the time.
What was it like when you first started out, and how was that training scene compared to maybe the training sessions that are put on today?
So when I first started out, there wasn't really very many training sessions at all, and the only one that was close to us was FWA, which was the best training school in the country. But like, I was not mentally mature enough to be there. So yeah, I just wasn't really ready to put in the hard work at that point. But then like over time, schools have opened bit by bit. My main, like, I used to travel up to Essex to train with Justin Richards. I'll always treasure that time. I feel like he was the first real proper trainer I had, that I just immediately, as soon as I started training with him, I just blew through the roof, like skill wise. And then since then came back to Rev Pro training down here, and that's been my home base for the most part. I try to train other places when I'm out and about. I do seminar, like, as well as taking seminars, I also like attend seminars that other people have delivered, depending on who's doing it and what they can learn, what they can teach me and what I can learn from them. So I think like the scene's in the best place now. We've got people coming over. Someone messaged me the other day from Belgium, an old friend of mine that's coming over just to train. And it's fantastic that people come over here and they know pretty much. Again, there's always going to be a few that you don't want to go to, but the vast majority of trainings places in this country are just so good now, and you're training alongside some of the best wrestlers in the world. I think it's just a fantastic scene to be a part of.
Yeah, it's exciting. It really does. It has a real good feel to it. It kind of feels like there's a real burst of energy throughout the thing. I think it's your creativity that you bring to it that really takes it onto that next level. So absolute genuine pleasure, and I really appreciate your time for this interview, and I'm excited to see your new character, and I'm excited to see what happens in the endings of some of these matches that you've got coming up soon. Obviously, anyone watching, please do give Kelly your support by following his social media, getting hold of his t-shirts, and if you are a promoter out there, there's so much you can use him for. So and we need to get you back up this way. I want to see you in Lincoln again. So but yeah, thanks very much for your time. If there's anything else you wanted to add, please feel free, but if not, thank you very much.
No, I think we've covered everything. Thank you very much for having me on.